Welcome back to the Mindset and Me podcast. On this week's episode, I am joined by Sophie Hughes. Sophie is a British plus size model, body positivity, and self love advocate. She also saved her baby nephew's life by giving him part of her liver and then went on to launch her multi-million-pound skincare brand, glowb. After he spent months on the transplant list, Sophie stepped forward and agreed to donate part of her liver and flew the 10,000 miles from Australia. Both made a full recovery, and post-procedure, Sophie was left with a 7-inch scar down her midriff and riddled with insecurities. The scar acted as a catalyst for launching the skincare brand glowb and to help people to feel as confident as they deserve to be. So, welcome to the Mindset and Me podcast, Sophie. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh my goodness, we are honoured to have you as always. I think for anyone who's just stumbling across you, I'd love to know about your story because I did a bit of a deep dive into your Instagram and I just want to know everything as well.
I have been modeling since I was 15. I got scouted for modeling when I was 15. I was a size 6. I got scouted on the streets of London and kind of thrown into this world of modeling. And it's funny because it's not something I'd ever considered. I think a lot of people say, oh my gosh, what a dream for a young girl. But it's not something I'd ever even thought about. I kind of just got plucked off the street
Mm.
and it was like, we'll put you into a photo shoot and let's see how it goes. We'll just do this one shoot. Then all of a sudden you're booking work and you're flying here, there, and everywhere, and there you are, you're a model. So it's absolutely crazy at 15. And I've been modeling now for, gosh, nearly 16 years. That's not okay. It's a really long time.
Yeah, yeah.
A really long time.
So let's rewind a minute then, because obviously you're starting at that when you're 15. And like when I was 15, yeah, I thought I knew everything. Like the Yorkshire girl in me, I'm fine,
Yeah.
I know everything. But actually, you're so young at that age. So talk to me about what that was like kind of navigating as a teenager.
It was crazy, really. I mean, I was in a space in my life where I already had quite a lot of body issues. Definitely body dysmorphia. I used food as punishment. I wasn't in a great space anyway. So then to throw me into this world of modeling, and I think the modeling industry has come, I won't say a long way, it's come a way since then. It has moved a little bit since then. We are continuing to push and continuing to get more diversity in terms of body shapes and what you see in advertising. But it has come a long way since then because back then it was, I was 15, I would go into the agency and they would pick me apart. They would do my measurements and say,
Mm.
I was literally tiny. There was absolutely nothing to me. And it would be my measurements and it'd be, okay, you need to lose 2 inches off your hips. Now, there was no fat on my hips. My hips were bone. So to be thrown into that world at 15 was absolutely wild. And then to be expected that mentally you would survive in that environment without any tools and without any support was crazy, really. I'd probably say the positives from modeling from such a young age were that I became incredibly independent. I was traveling down to London on my own when I was 16, 17. I was having to have working relationships with my agents and be professional and work with other models and things like that. So in that way, it was absolutely brilliant because you really don't succeed in modeling unless you are a professional. But in terms of,
Mm.
the negative aspects, they were definitely there.
Mm. And how did you kind of deal with, I guess, the negativity? Talking obviously being a teenager, but then like becoming the woman, right? Becoming like who you are. How did that pan out for you?
Yeah, so through into my early 20s, I very much still struggled. I had just massive lack of confidence in self and lack of confidence in my body. And it's one of those things where, and I continue to do this now, I think all women do, but you look back on a picture of yourself where at the time you thought you looked horrendous or whatever the words are that come to mind, fat, all of these things around shame. And actually you looked incredible and you can see yourself now and
Mm.
think, wow, I looked amazing. But at the time, it just wasn't there. So every time I would get shots back from a campaign, it would be, I would just be riddled with self doubt, and I just didn't. I never liked what I saw. But coming on to the next part of my journey, which I guess is where it really pivots and where everything changed for me. When I was 25, my nephew Oscar was born. This is kind of like, where is this going? Stick with me.
No.
My nephew Oscar was born, and he was born with a condition called biliary atresia. And basically, he had an operation to see if they could to fix his bile duct, see if they could fix his bile duct, and it wasn't successful. And very quickly, he was on the transplant list and needing a liver, and we were running out
Oh,
of time.
wow.
Yeah, so
Oh.
it was awful, and as a family, by far the most difficult thing we've ever been through. There were so many moments where we nearly lost him, and we were made aware as a family of the Living Liver Donor program, where a family member could potentially donate part of their liver. So I put my hand up really early on in the process to donate my liver. And it was one of those things at the time where the whole team, the whole team at Leeds who facilitated the transplant, they were like, it's very, very unlikely you'll be a match. We have to test every single cell in your body. We have to do a 3D model of your liver. There's just so many reasons that you won't be a match. You have to be a perfect blood match. It's unlikely, but we would love to get you in for testing. So I flew back from Australia, where I was living at the time, and underwent vigorous testing, and I was a match. So Oscar's health was rapidly declining, and I was a match, and I was there and willing and able. So I underwent the surgery, and I donated 40% of my liver to Oscar in order to save his life, it's one of those stories that when I tell it now, it's as if I tell it as an outsider, and other people
Yeah,
are
I get
so
that.
emotionally involved in it. But for me, it's just my story, and it's just part of who I am now. But it left me with a 7-inch scar down my
Yeah,
stomach, and
yeah.
that kind of pivoted me into the next journey of my career, of my life, of learning to love my body. So it was absolutely the best thing that could have ever happened to me on a personal level. Like, there's almost a selfish element to it that I never realized I would get, but I've gained so much from that experience.
It's so beautiful, that story. When we were put in touch with each other, and I read that, like, I was emotional reading that email,
Yeah.
like, and then to hear you talk about it, it's just because I'm the same, like, I would do anything for my nephews, like,
Yes.
absolutely anything, and but it's just so incredible. So I guess, you've gone through the surgery and you're seeing, like, the wonderful side of it, but then also you're saying you have to, like, fall back in love with your body. Like, what's it
Yes.
like in the process, like, right back then?
Yeah, it's crazy. I should add, because I always forget to add this bit, and I get so many questions afterwards, that Oscar is absolutely thriving. He's like the cutest, happiest, most amazing little boy. Loves his
Oh.
little liver. We are liver buddies, so it's a very
Oh,
happy
stop.
story.
My
But
gosh.
yeah, in the moment, it's hectic. It's terrifying, to be honest. I think there were conversations with my brother, which is Oscar's dad, prior to surgery. He's my older brother, and he was quite concerned about, how is this going to impact your modeling? How is this going to impact your body image? And he rightly so, as that older brother had those concerns. But ultimately, Oscar's life was on the line, and that was kind of irrelevant in the end. It wasn't important. But I remember looking at my scar for the first time. I remember taking the bandages off for the first time and being like, wow, nothing can quite prepare you for that. I mean,
Mm.
it's 7.5 inches, 8 inches down my stomach, and it's there. And it was very dark at the time, and it was bleeding and everything. I remember taking the bandages off and just crying in the bathroom, and then
Oh.
going downstairs to my sister. My sister's the best. She's not only my best friend, but she just has this beautiful ability to put a funny spin on things. So I went downstairs and I showed it to her, and she went, "Why is it wonky?"
Oh, no.
That's the
You're like,
first thing she
"Great."
said.
Cheers, sis. Yeah,
That was her
great.
response, which was brilliant, and it was exactly what I needed in the moment.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it took me a while. It really did. It took me a long time to adapt to having a scar. I think particularly when you have a surgery that you don't necessarily need, it just adds another layer to it of, you've
Mm.
got this scar, and there's just so much to process, because it was such a shock to the system. It's not like I'd had an ongoing illness, or I had time to prepare or expect it. But it took me a little while. It definitely took me a little while to get in a bikini. I was terrified
Mm.
of the
Oh.
conversations I would have to have, and I just wasn't in a space of owning it and being proud of it. But a little time passed, and really, movements on social media around body positivity, and this is why I'm so passionate about body positivity on social media, because there were some key players, Chessie King and the Birds Papaya, who I followed religiously, and the two of
Mm.
them really taught me that it was okay to embrace exactly where my body
Mm.
was at, and it was okay to embrace the weight gain. And I really now want to pay that forward, because I looked at them and I had so much respect and admiration, and they really led me on this journey that I'm on now.
Oh, I mean, I know both of them.
Yes.
Birds for Pie, I mean, they're both incredible, but, the Birds for Pie, I remember the day she, like, followed me back, and I was like, "Oh my God. I've completed Instagram, I'm
She's
done."
amazing. She's the
She's
best. She really is.
she's amazing, but what I really love about that conversation is it's way deeper than the body,
Mhm.
actually. So when we talk about body positivity, we're not really talking about just the body. Like,
No.
it's the societal expectation of women that we're trying to
Mhm.
unpick. So how do you feel when you're talking about that?
Yeah, so it's funny actually because I was listening to a podcast this morning. I've always got a podcast in my ears, like I just absolutely love
Good.
a podcast.
We love
And
to hear that.
it was Brené Brown, and she was talking
Oh.
about, I know, obsessed. She was talking about this fear of what other people will think. And actually, if you live your life in a space of what will other people think of me, then you never get to experience your own life in any decision that you're making, in any process that you're going through. And you can relate it to body positivity because it's like, do I wear the bikini? And if you're not going to wear the bikini, generally it's because you're terrified of what other people will think or how other people will perceive you. Because if there's no one there and you were on a desert island, you're going to wear the damn bikini. So it is all
Right.
about what other people think. And if you live your life in that space, you live your life in a cage. And I think there's so much in that. And for me, when I realized that and I embraced that and I lent into that, it was so freeing to understand that I was living my life for fear of what other people thought versus living my
Mm.
life and going about my daily actions and not leaning into what may other people think of me. What will they say? What will they think? It becomes irrelevant.
So I'd be really interested to know, like, do you have that mindset every day or is it still a practice?
It's 100% still a practice.
Yeah.
Surely, I think anyone who says they've got that down and they never have a wobble, come on, you're lying. Like that's a lie.
Yeah.
No one has that down. But I have
Yeah.
come such a long way. I really, really have. I'm really proud of how far I've come, and that's part of my daily practice as
Mm.
well. Reminding myself how far I've come. So if I have a day where I don't feel like wearing that and I don't feel like putting the bikini on, I'm kind to myself. That's okay. You don't have to be
Mm.
this, inspirational body positivity queen every single day. It's okay to have those moments, but focus on how far you have come.
Yeah, absolutely. To be, like, really granular, and I
Yes.
hate to be, like, this specific, do you have, like, daily practices then that you come back to, like, things that you do in the morning or in the evening or something?
I think probably when I first started with my body positivity, I did a lot. And now I'm in a better space. I don't have to do as much. It's more maintenance. But I'm very conscious of things like I never used to look at myself in the mirror. And I mean, like, really eye to eye to myself in the mirror. And I do that a lot more now at the start of the day, at the end of the day, just really connecting with self and having that moment of, look how far you've come. You've absolutely got this. Whatever this day throws at you, however rough this day gets, you can do this, because it's that moment with self of no one else is going to do it for you. No one's going to come and save you. But if you can have that moment with yourself each morning of, I believe in you. I know you can do this. I've seen you do this before. You can certainly go and do it again. And then the same at the end of every day of, I'm really proud of you. And it's not something that I
Mm.
personally say out loud. I know a lot of people do and they do their affirmations out loud. But for me, it's just that moment of looking myself in the eye and just having that moment of, you gave it everything today, and I'm really, really proud of you. So I would
Mm.
say that's probably the most conscious thing I do in each day. I definitely have lots of mindset practices throughout the day, but in terms of body positivity, it's really about that, owning that moment in the mirror, and also being prepared to be naked in the mirror and owning that in itself, and not always having this feeling of shame around that. I think before, the only time I was naked in the mirror was to pick myself apart and say, your boobs are
Mm.
too saggy, your hips are too big, look at your cellulite, look at your back fat. And that was my only experience with the mirror. And now it's
Mm.
far more positive, and I focus on, these are the things that I love, and thank you for keeping me alive today. Because once you move into that space of, look at what your body can do, and certainly my experience with liver, my body was able to
Mm.
save another life. If I'm not thanking it every single day looking in the mirror, and if you're a mom and you've given birth, anything you've been through with your body, every single day it fights for you to keep you alive. Don't you dare
Mm.
stand in the mirror at the end of the day and slate it for its little bit of back fat or whatever it might be.
Oh, I think mirror work's so powerful. And I think as well to really stare at yourself in the mirror, nobody does that.
Mm-mm.
Just like nobody goes eye to eye with themselves because of where the mind is going to go. But you have to be able to confront yourself to be able to grow, right? It has to be uncomfortable to be able to create that change.
Yes. And the more uncomfortable you're willing to get, the more normal it becomes. It's like anything
Mm.
when you try, it's like when you do affirmations out loud for the first time, you feel, it's an interesting experience. But once you do them every day, it's just like, I'm shouting at myself around the house, like it just becomes normal.
Everyone's like, "Are you okay?" I'm absolutely fine. It's just my morning practice. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I'm all good. I'm all good.
Yeah.
I'd love to understand your kind of biggest mindset battles because you are this like vivacious woman. Yeah, you've got this like gorgeous energy, but
Oh,
let's
thank
be
you.
realistic. We all have mindset battles
Oh,
still.
yeah.
So how do you navigate those?
Oh my lord. And it's so important to talk about this. I think we look at other people and we think that they don't go through things, and it's so important that people are honest about this. And I again really try to do this on my social media. I really try to show up when I've had a really rough day and just keep it as
Mm,
real as I possibly can. I've had a hell of a 9 months, like it's been the craziest journey. I've been living in Australia for best part of 9 years with my now ex-partner, and I had built up my career over there. My modeling was thriving, all of my socials work, everything was going so well. And then COVID hit, and it made me ask myself some really difficult questions around where do I see my future being, and what is it that's most important to me at this point.
mm,
So
mm,
I'd been locked in Australia for best part of 2 years. I wasn't able to get out. I had to apply for business exemption after business exemption after business exemption to get back. And having them rejected and feeling like I was locked in and I couldn't come back and see my family when there was inevitably things going on here and COVID and everyone's
mm,
mental health was struggling was borderline impossible. And it became almost an obsession where I would wake up every day and constantly check the news to see if anything had updated with the borders, constantly looking for just some glimmer of hope. And so finally, when I got my exemption, I came back to England initially for 6 weeks. That was my plan. So I was supposed to come for 6 weeks. And quite quickly on arriving, realized that I wanted to stay. And that was absolutely not my intention because I came with one suitcase. So would not recommend. People always say, you must have known you were going to stay. And I'm like, I brought one suitcase. I left everything. Um,
wow.
and so that meant leaving behind my relationship of 9 years with my partner, who I loved very much and could still, very much see a future with, but I had a decision to make. It meant leaving behind my cats. It meant wading through an unbelievable amount of shit, like selling my car, my house, this, that, just everything. You write a list of relocating to the other side of the world, and it is heavy.
Yeah.
And my mental health took a beating. I mean, I remember coming to the decision, and I was at my sister's house, and I'd said to her, I think I'm going to move home. And she thought, I was just having a bit of a wobble. But she was like, come round, come round. And then I got there, and I was not having a bit of a wobble. I was having this is going to happen and I'm going to do this. And I was throwing up in the bathroom and sobbing. And it was, real as low as it gets moment of, I can't do this. This is a mountain that I just do not know how to climb. I have no idea where to even start. I have to rip someone's heart out of his chest who I've spent the last 9 years building a life with. And it just felt absolutely impossible. And I think it is so important to share that side of things because we do
Mm,
look at social media and the glitz and glamour and collabs with this brand and modeling with this brand and globes going so well. And ultimately, everyone has life. And we have to always remember that everyone has life going on. And it's just
mm.
how we choose to handle it. And I guess that's what we dive into now, right?
Right, exactly. So I guess what were your learnings through that situation? Because, the nat leaving behind a lot in 9 years is already difficult
Mm,
without navigating that's across the other side of the world. So it's a
yes.
complete clean break, isn't it?
Yeah, I've literally had to start again with everything. I mean, I didn't have a single piece of furniture, like clothes, I had nothing. So literally had to completely start again, which was terrifying. But I
Mm,
think I think the biggest lesson, and it's almost like therapy when you talk about it yourself, but I think the biggest lesson for me has been to be kind to yourself in the face of adversity,
mm,
because I place so many expectations on myself. I'm so hard on myself all the time. I am
yeah.
so you know, I always think I could do more or I could do better. And I never really stopped to give myself a break. And in that period of my life, I had to. There was no
Yeah.
option. I was not going to survive if I did not stop and be kind to myself and take that time that I needed. So
Mm.
immediately after I'd done it and after I'd kind of waded through the first bits, I went over to North Wales and I literally locked myself in a cabin for like 10 days, and I barely looked at my phone. I read, I did all the things that I know and I've learned over the years that top my happy cup up. And I think
Mm.
this is where you have to know your own practices so that when shit
Mhm.
really hits the fan, okay, what do I have to do in this moment? Because it looks completely different for everyone. For me,
Yeah.
writing is a massive part of that process. I love to journal. I love to meditate, eating clean, moving my body, all these things that people tell you that sound so simple, right? But these are the things that I needed to do in that moment in order to be able to survive. So it was lock myself away from the world. And for other people, it would be surround yourself with the people you love. But for me, it was lock myself away, journal, read, cry, get it out. Like, it's okay to cry. I talk about this all the time, but I regularly see a psychologist, Louise. She's absolutely amazing. I would not survive without her. Anyone who tries to run a business without seeing a psychologist, what are you doing? Like, I
No.
mean, anyone who tries to run their life, have kids, do
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
without
Yeah. Yeah.
without seeking professional help. And I think there's still such a stigma around that, which blows my mind, because
Mm.
if you had anything else wrong with your body, you go straight to your GP and you make sure that you get to see the right specialist and you get through the right referral process. And yet when it's our brain that's letting us down, and you know, the neurons in our brain aren't quite firing right at the moment, we don't go and get help for that.
Mm.
And that's
Mm.
how you have to look at your brain. You have to look at it as the chemicals in your brain aren't quite supporting you and you need to get help with that. And there's no shame in that. It's the most
Right.
cathartic, beautiful experience to see a psychologist. I absolutely love it. And one thing that Louise taught me was I never cry. Oh, I never cried, past tense. Never ever cried. I could go 3 months without crying. And
Really?
yeah, I know. And all my friends cry all the time. And I'd be like, why
I'm a
are you?
crier.
Yeah, like, and I didn't understand because I'd just be like, why are you crying? I don't understand. Now I cry nearly every day. I love it. It's the best. But
Listen, I'm a Pisces. I cry all the time.
but she reframed it for me and she put it into a really great perspective. And that was that, imagine you're at the beach and you've got this beach ball, right? And you are pushing it under the water constantly. And at some point, you let go of a little bit of tension and it explodes in your face and you barely survive it. Like, it's going to pop up in your face. But if you imagine this beach ball is your brain and the pressure and your mental health, and if you just let it up a little bit at a time, it never explodes in your face. It's okay. You just let a little bit up, you cry, you release a little bit of tension at a time, you take care of your mental health in this motion rather than suppress, because at some point it will explode in your
Mm.
face. And I
Mm.
remember that now when I'm struggling and I'm pushing it down, I think, okay, this is gonna not end well. So just release a little bit, go for a walk for an hour, put your phone down for an hour, release, read a book,
Mm.
release. And that's
Mm.
that's what I really remind myself of with my mental health.
It's a really nice way of phrasing it, definitely. Speaking of mental health, obviously you share so much. You're an open book, you're a
Yeah.
northern girl, so I get it. We wear our heart on our sleeve.
Hmm.
What do you do when you're faced with maybe negative comments or negativity?
Faced with negativity, do you know what? I think age is a beautiful thing in this,
Mm.
because as you get older, you're not as phased by them. And you just mentioned you're a Pisces. I'm a Sagittarius, so I'm a
Yeah,
little bit like, I don't really buy into it. Like, I don't have time
yeah,
in my life, in my one life that is so precious and, you know, so fragile, to consume other people's thoughts of me or other people's negativity
yeah,
towards me. And
yeah.
I think that is almost a personality trait, because I get this question a lot. And I think for me, it is a little bit like water off a duck's back. I find it easier than most people, I think, to move through it and to wade through it, because I am so conscious in my own life and so grateful for every day that I focus on that. I just focus on the gratitude of being alive and being here and having this opportunity. So if someone has something negative to say or wants to throw negativity at me, I don't have the time. I really just
Mm.
don't have the time for that. I don't have the time to allow that to impact me, because we've got this one shot and I just want to run through it and I want to make the most of it, and I'm not here to listen to what negative people have to say. I also really understand with age that it is never, and it has never been, a reflection on me, ever.
Mm,
Someone
mm,
has
mm,
something negative to say about you or what you're doing or the way you lead your life, it says so much more about them. Because I know for me personally, whenever I've had a negative comment on someone else's life, it's come from a place of lack in me. So if
mhm,
I'm commenting on someone's marriage, it's because I'm not secure in my own relationship. If I'm commenting on someone's body, I would never dream of commenting on someone's body because I'm so focused on my own body journey and my own healing journey. And I understand how difficult that is and how much courage it takes to show up every single day in your body and embrace it. That I'm in a great space, so I never would. People who comment on my body on social media, I have pity for them. I feel sorry for them. I almost want to
mm,
support them because it comes from
mm,
a place of lack in them. And I think if you can remember that, it allows you to move through the negativity and not allow it to impact you because
mm,
it's on them. I always say, whose shit is that? Like, that's not my shit. That's
mm,
your shit. You want to make a comment about my body? That's yours. You take that because it's got nothing
mm.
to do with me. I'm irrelevant.
It's such a nice way as you get older, like, I'm in my mid-30s and, like, perspective is everything, isn't
Yes.
it?
Yeah.
So, like, I feel so grateful that I didn't have social media growing up, gotta be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
Like, teenagers now, I mean, my heart goes out to them,
I
but
mean, we had MSN. That was about as bad as it got.
yeah, oh my God, we had MSN. I forgot about that. Oh my
The
goodness.
most traumatic thing we went through was when, like, your crush took your name out of hearts.
Yeah.
Remember?
And, like, MySpace, and you'd be like, "Look at my
MySpace.
MySpace profile." Anyway, we digress, we digress. But I think, like, perspective is everything, and to be able to curate that type of, like, growth mindset essentially is, like, repetition and recognition, and, like, that's the way to do it. So I guess, like, I'd really wanna understand, you've got to this space, right? You're feeling, like, really confident
Mm,
in your body, and then you've, like,
mm.
launched a brand, and, like,
Yes.
another things that I just really wanna because, like, brand founders are so incredible to me, and especially female founders were so supportive of that space, my listeners, me.
Huh?
So I really wanna know, like, how that was to obviously, like, launch the brand, be in the brand, working in the brand. Tell us everything, you know?
Oh my gosh, it is the craziest experience, and I think anyone you speak to about business tells you this, and it's one of those things that honestly, just to be candid, if I knew how difficult it would have been, like if someone could have shown me, here's the next year of your journey,
Yeah,
I don't think I ever would have
yeah.
dreamed of embarking on it because it gets so dark and it gets so difficult and it can be so lonely in entrepreneurship that you really do have to be ready and you have to be prepared, and I think this, it kind of comes back to what we were saying about people speaking negatively about you. You have to be ready for that, you really do,
Mm,
because it's going to come,
mm,
it's always going to come. And so
mm,
yeah, you have to be in this space, and I would not recommend turning your life upside down in that same space. Not ideal.
mm, mm.
Don't move
Yeah,
10,000 miles,
yeah.
don't leave your relationship. Would not
Oh,
recommend.
bless you. Mm.
But
Hard no,
having said
hard
that,
no.
yeah, firm no, would not recommend, 1 star. But having said that, it is also the most incredible endeavor, and you learn so much about yourself on that journey, on the journey
Mm,
of creating a business. You really do. You learn, I think one of the biggest lessons for me in business has been that it's all about how much uncertainty can you handle? How close to the edge can you push yourself? How much risk are you willing to go in with? How much fear can you accept? And so it is such a mental game that Mindset Me is the perfect space to talk about that, because that is the thing that you have to have in place. Everything else you can
mm,
figure out, everything else you can learn. You don't know how to do finance, you learn. You don't know how to do logistics, you learn. You don't know how to do socials, you learn. But mindset has to be the constant for you in business. It
mm,
has to be the priority before you do anything else within there. So launching glowb came from the rest of the journey, right? So it came from the modeling and the body positivity and everything that I'd learned in that space, and it came from my scar and wanting to launch a brand that was all about body positivity and skin positivity and supporting women. That was really where it came from.
mm,
And then skincare made a lot of sense. Beauty made a lot of sense because it was something that I was so passionate about. And it's been an absolute roller coaster. We are at a really exciting spot where we're just about to list with our first major retailer. Can't say too much just
Oh
yet.
no.
I know. But next week we'll be going live, which is really exciting, and then hopefully it will snowball from there. So there's lots
Mm,
coming with glowb, and there's lots that keeps me very, very busy. It's one of those when you're a startup, and when you're, like you say, a female founder, you are literally just doing a little bit of everything. And I
mm,
think
mm.
people see the glitz and they see the glamour, but it takes massive guts, courage, and just tenacity to keep going with it. I
Yeah.
think I think that's the biggest piece of advice that I can give to people is when you feel like giving up, just keep pushing, push just that
Mm,
little bit
mm,
harder. You think you've got nothing left in you, keep pushing, because people will get your vision, and it will pop.
mm. Yeah, it's hearing you talk, it's just like reminding me of that thing that Kim Kardashian said.
What did she
Where
say?
she's
Which one?
like where she was like, "Nobody wants to work these days, okay? Nobody wants to get up and work." I'm like, "Are you joking?" Like, there's the most amazing women, like, doing everything, and I get tons of
Mm,
girls reaching out to me thinking of starting a podcast. I'm like, "Do
yeah,
it, but
yeah,
be ready for the work," because
that's it.
it's not just all a podcast turning up, like, there's so much that goes into it.
Of
Yeah.
course, and it's anything in your life that you want to succeed at, it is
Mhm.
going to take more hard work than you could ever imagine. I'm
Yeah.
sure I'm sure you're the same when you launched the podcast, and you probably didn't
Yeah.
realize how
No.
much graft would go into it. And if you'd have seen that, maybe you wouldn't have launched it, because I think that all the time. Someone had shown me how hard, and I mean really how hard, like,
Yeah.
here's a camera into the lowest moments and as tough as it gets. I don't think I would have signed up for that.
I know. I
So
think, yeah, I always say that, like, in every situation that becomes really difficult,
mhm,
what is the gift, right?
that's
So when
it.
you reflect on it, what's the gift from this situation?
100%. And the gift for me is knowing how wildly capable I am now. So in
I love
any
that.
moment that I've been through in the last 9 months, my relationship, everything, moving back, I'm in my own house now, and I've decorated it, and I'm so happy with it. And I've taken leaps and bounds. And the gift for me is just knowing that, as dark as it gets, and in those lowest moments where you just think you've got nothing left, look what you did. Like, you survived. You always survive. We all always survive.
Oh.
It's never as dark as you think it's going to be. It's never as hard as you
Mm,
think it's going to be. When you're in that depth of, I'm not going to survive, you always
mm,
pull through, and you look back and you have this realization that not only were you wildly capable, but also for me, I feel in my life like I'm being guided, and I always feel that
mm.
I connect so much more to my spirituality when I've been through those experiences, because I look back and I go, oh, but look, and you survived, and it worked out, and it actually worked
Yeah.
out better than you ever could have imagined. And if you'd have just lent in, and if you'd have just trusted in that moment that everything was going to be okay, and that you were being guided, and you just have to keep getting up, keep showing up, keep surviving, keep going, keep inspiring other people to do the same,
Mm,
it's all leading to exactly where it was always supposed to lead to.
mm. Oh, it's perfect. I literally couldn't have said that better myself. I kind of get, like, lost in your words, and I'm
Oh,
like, "Wait, remember what we need to talk about?" I really wanna get into the specifics because I know there's so many incredible, intelligent women who listen to this podcast who maybe
yeah.
they wanna launch a brand or a product.
Mm.
What are the specifics or, like, advice that you'd give around launching?
I think have the right people in your corner is really, really important. A lot of it is about who you know, and I did not know the right people, and that slowed me down a lot. So in terms of when we were trying to find a manufacturer, it was sending 200 emails to get the right manufacturer on board, and there was just a lot of pain in that. I would also add to that I launched the brand in the middle of the pandemic. So pretty much every single manufacturer that I contacted, because that was where I started, just came back and said, no, absolutely not.
Oh,
We don't want
wow.
your money. We're not taking on new brands. We've got so much uncertainty. We have no idea what the future holds for us. So no.
Yeah.
So that was difficult, and I'm sure now it is a little bit simpler. But I think really having the right people in your corner who can advise you, keep your team, keep your staff, keep your overheads as low as you possibly can for as long as you possibly can until you are drowning as an individual and you cannot do it and you need to get someone to outsource to. Do as much as you possibly can and maximize on the profit that you've got coming in as early on as you possibly can. I
Mhm,
think
mhm.
that's a mistake that we made early on. We overspent and we got staff in before we needed to, and it just didn't serve us. I think that's been one of my greatest lessons was if you can do it yourself still, do it yourself until you can no longer do it yourself and you have the
Mhm.
budget to get other people in
Mm.
and then get experts in their field. So for me, one of our next hires with glowb will be a TikTok expert, like a specialist, because I know that that's not my forte. I'm Gen Z. I'm not, sorry, I'm millennial. I'm not Gen Z. So
Same.
having a Gen Z expert in their field come in and do what
Yeah.
they do very well is really, really important. And it is just
Mm.
all about who you surround yourself with. It's about who you surround yourself with in terms of your mindset as well, because like I say, it does get tough and you need to know who those people in your corner when the days do get dark, who can you lean on, who have you got in your network that you know you can ring and vent to. That's absolutely crucial. What I also do think is it all comes down to belief in your brand as well. Belief in self, but belief in your brand. It's so
Mm.
crucial that your brand, your business is a reflection of all that is good in you. Like for me, when I talk
Mm.
about glowb, I just light up. Like I could talk about it
Yeah.
all day. It's my baby. I'm so passionate about it. I look at
Mm.
it, I look at the packaging, I look at everything we've created so far, and I just think I absolutely love this brand. And that is so crucial because when you are pitching to retailers, investors, whoever it may be, you have to have that belief. You have to know
Mm.
why you started, you have to know where you're going, and you have to absolutely love it. And then if you don't, know that actually it's okay to bow out gracefully. I think there is
Mm.
such a stigma in business around people quitting, but I actually think it's just knowing when to bow out gracefully because not
Mm.
every business
Mm.
makes it. It might not be this endeavor that makes it for you. You might
Mm.
be in something and you feel like it's an absolute rut and you don't like the branding and you're not proud of where you're at in your business. And it might be time to start something fresh, and there's no shame in that. And I guess that kind
Mhm.
of pulls it back full circle to where I spoke at the start about Brené Brown and how so often we are in so much fear of what other people think. And if we just
Mm.
removed that, would you carry on? Would you continue? Are you
Mm.
obsessed? Do you have this unwavering belief in your business? Or
Mm.
actually, are you in a space of this just doesn't light me up anymore? And maybe this
Mm.
isn't it, but I'm too afraid to admit that because what will people think? What will people say? So it's all in there of just being really honest with self about what makes you happy, what you want your future to look like, and when the right time is to push versus bow out gracefully. And there's no shame in that.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing insight, especially because I talked about this where social media, the only thing that seems to be successful is perfection, right? And
Yes.
I'm all about hearing like the stories, the messy middle,
Yes.
the difficult things, the
Yes.
failures that we've overcome, because it makes you a rounded human. Like if you
Hmm.
go through your life constantly and everything's gone well,
Yes.
I have to say that I would question your perspective and
Yes.
you understanding and the compassion and empathy part around other people. So I think everything you've said has completely nailed it. I'd also love to know like the story behind like the name, and because your products have got really cool names as well. Like
Thank you.
it's a bit cheeky,
It's a
guys.
little bit cheeky. The it's actually quite funny, but the name was just one of the hardest things to nail with
Yeah.
glowb, and it's really difficult because you're in a really saturated market, regardless of what
Mhm.
company you're going to launch, regardless whether it's a podcast. You come up with a great name and it's gone. So it's one of those things. It is really really tricky, but it
Mm.
has to be something. I had a list of about 50, and I kept bouncing them off other people, and I just kept coming back to glowb, and I kept putting it in the middle of the list when I was sending it to other people, and I've like secretly hoped that they'd say they liked that one, and I'd be like, it's a play on words, and it's this, and it's glow, but it's glowb. And yeah, and then I think by doing that, I kind of realized that that was the name that I liked. And it's like
Mm.
you're asking someone, which one do you think? But you already know which one you want, really. So, and then they
Absolutely.
say,
Yeah.
like, no, I want this one. Um, So yeah, the name for glowb was very organically done. It was just, what resonates. And again, it comes back to, you've got to love it and you've got to be obsessed with the brand. The name for products, don't even get me started, because that is the hardest thing to do. It's
Yeah.
so hard. And we're about to launch a couple of new products this year. And we're actually just in the process of designing packaging and sending off for the first round of samples of packaging. So I have to finalize these product names this week. And it's just like this impending doom that I've got to decide on these product names, because it's so
Mm,
hard. But I
mm,
wanted them to be fun. I wanted them to stand out in the crowd. Beauty is, such a massive industry, and there are so many products to navigate through. I wanted them to represent what the brand stands for, because we don't take ourselves too seriously. So our gel cleanser, for example, is called Dirtier the Better. Our serum is called Hyaluronic and Chill. You've got Glow Hero for the oil, Freaky Clean for your micellar, not another pink mask, because I'm very aware there's lots of pink clay masks out there, but this is not just a pink mask, because look at the ingredients. So it really was just that extension of what do I want the brand to be? What does the brand stand for? And how do
mm.
I translate that through not just product names, but every single millimeter of what we do at glowb?
You're so passionate, and I will share all of the details in the show notes, obviously, for everyone to come and like explore the brand and just like take a peruse around the page, even because it's so inclusive and it's so diverse, and like that's literally what we are all about.
Yeah.
So finally, I always ask everybody before we end, what is one mindset hack that you could share with someone who's just starting out on their journey?
One mindset hack. I think let's talk body positivity, because that's probably, my biggest thing. And I think if you're listening to this, and I get this quite a lot, people message me quite a lot and they just say, you're so far into your journey. Like, how did you even get started? It's easy
Yeah.
for me now. It is easy for me now to talk about wearing a bikini to the beach and feeling confident and showing up on my knickers in social media. My nephew actually hilariously was like, why is Auntie Sophie always in her knickers?
You're like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, don't worry, it's got nothing to do with you. But I think the biggest thing that I did at the start of my journey was really apologize to my body for the journey before and drive a clean slate. So I actually wrote a letter, but you could do this by spoken word, you could do this however you see fit. And it was really difficult to do. It was really emotional to do, because it was a list of all the things that I'd ever said to my body about, all the times I'd ever spoken negatively to my body, all the things that I'd said I hated about my body. And I really reframed it as, I would never dream of saying these things to anyone else. I would never dream of saying these things to my best friend or my mom or a stranger
Mm,
who I've never met. I wouldn't dream. And yet I spend so much time, and I have spent so much time in the 29 years prior to this point, abusing my body on the daily. And so I wrote myself this letter. And like I say, you could say it out loud. And I made a commitment to myself that moving forward, I would not say those things. And if I did say those things, I would catch them in my brain. So if I would see my tummy and think, oh, you look disgusting, you've let yourself
mm,
go, whatever it might be, that I had a commitment to myself that I would catch it, I would remove it, and I would replace it with gratitude. I would replace it with gratitude
oh,
that I am here, that I am healthy, that I am so blessed to have this body. And even if you're on a journey of improving your body, and you're on a journey of improving self, whatever it might be, and having healthier habits, because that's what it's all about for me. It's about your health. It's not about sizing your jeans. It's about how healthy you feel mentally and physically. And even if you're on that journey, committing to yourself that you will stop saying those things. You will stop saying that your nose it has a kink in it, and so you need to get a nose job. You
mm,
will just stop being so cruel to yourself. And I think from that line that I drew in the sand moving forward, that was really the start of my body positivity journey. So whenever people say to me, where do I start? This is such a mountain to climb. I absolutely hate everything about myself. Remove yourself from the situation. Think
mm,
about, you're speaking to your best friend, you're speaking to your mom, you're speaking to someone that you love and adore and respect, and you would never do that. And
mm,
remember that your life is so short, and you cannot spend it crippled in self doubt and self
mm,
loathing and hating what you see in the mirror, because that is the least interesting thing about you. It really is. So
mm,
draw that
mm,
line
mm,
underneath it. Forgive yourself for the years of cruelty, forgive yourself for where you've been with your body, and move into that space of, I will replace those thoughts with gratitude, and I will
mm.
commit every day to the journey of loving self.
I love that so much. Thank you. Thank you for sharing everything. There's been so many pearls of wisdom. So, for anyone who wants to connect with you, where can they find you?
So Instagram is my jam. Like I said, I'm not Gen Z. I'm not millennial. I'm very much Gen Z. Oh my god, I get that wrong every time. I am a millennial. I am a geriatric millennial, aren't I?
Yeah, I think I am as well,
That's what we
actually.
are.
But
We're the
yeah,
geriatrics. So you can
whatever.
find me on Instagram at Soph with Love, at Soph with Love, and at glowb.shop for the business. That's where you'll find me.
Amazing. Amazing. I'll share everything in the show notes, but just a personal thank you so much. I'm so glad we're connected and I can't wait to see the journey. I'm excited.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Take care. Oh my goodness, how amazing was that conversation? I'm so grateful to Sophie for sharing so much of her wisdom and her message with us. So, thank you so much for being here, and I will see you again next week.